What's up, guys? So, if you want a really good meal to eat before training and something that digests really well and is really easy and cheap to make, this will be a good dish to learn. It's called Monster Mash and it's created by Stan Efferding, who's the guy that created the vertical diet. There's a few things I changed, so let me show you what I do. So I usually use ground beef for this recipe, but this time I decided to be a little bit more fancy and use the Force of Nature brand, which was ground venison with some organ meat added to it. But for the people that can eat beef or can eat pork, I have a lot of Indian friends that are Hindi, so they can eat that stuff. So I'm sure using ground chicken or some ground turkey would be good too. But first thing I do is I prep the rice. I use 1.5 cups of rice and I just have a rice cooker, so I just do it that way. But I personally always wash my rice and I wash it pretty thoroughly. Like I wash it until the water that I cook the rice with is completely clear. But that's just me. I know some people don't even wash their rice at all, and for the most part it seems fine. But yeah, this is just what I like to do. But anyways, once that's done, I just add the water to it. I don't know how much water you use if you're using a pot or if you're using a different rice cooker, but the one that I use has little lines on it, so yeah, I just use those. For a different rice cooker I have, it's 1 part rice to 1 3/4 water. But yeah, just make sure you check whatever method you're using. Now, when I cook the rice, I always add a tiny bit of frozen corn, and even though a lot of nutritionists advise against using corn because apparently they use a lot of pesticides when growing it, and also it's not the most gut friendly thing apparently, I still like adding a tiny bit of it to it just because it makes the texture a lot better, and also it just makes the dish a lot more aesthetic. So yeah, I just put a tiny bit of frozen corn in it. I'm trying this adobo frozen corn from Sprouts, but usually I use the Trader Joe's charcoal corn. But then I just put it in the rice cooker and let it do its thing. It usually takes about 20 to 25 minutes. And if you don't have a rice cooker, I highly recommend getting one. So the rice cooker has a timer on it, and once it says it's 5 minutes away from being done, that's when I start preparing the meat and spinach. And I use a wooden spatula just so I don't scrape my pan, and I've heard it's a lot better for you. Then I just add some ghee to the pan. You could use oil or whatever, I just like using ghee. And I put a decent amount in because the meat looked pretty lean. If I'm using 85/15, I don't put as much in, but if the meat I'm cooking with is pretty lean, then I'll put a decent amount in. Ghee was actually invented in India, so thank you, India. Then I just add the meat and break it up a little bit. And to season this, I'm just using salt and pepper. Sometimes I also use Lawry's seasoning salt, but I ran out, so yeah, I'm just using salt and pepper for this time. And I had a pretty decent amount of salt just because, salt actually has a lot of benefits to it. And, me and my friend hit a pretty hard workout before this, so, we wanted to replenish the electrolytes and whatnot. And yeah, I'm using Himalayan pink salt for this one. But yeah, I'm a big fan of salt, and maybe one day I could sell my own salt. That would be pretty awesome. And when you're cooking ground beef, just make sure to keep turning it every so often just so, all surfaces get cooked. It's not like a steak where you could just put it on and then leave it there and just flip it once. I use a thermometer to check the temperature, which makes things a lot easier. But once the meat's around 150, that's when I add the spinach. You're supposed to cook ground beef and ground meat in general until about 160. But, if I add the spinach in at 160, then it's just going to get overcooked. So yeah, I add it at 150. And yeah, I just make the spinach a little bit wilted. So once that's done, I just bring it over and mix it in with the rice. The great thing about this meal is that, it's not just going to last you once. You could put it in the fridge and it'll last you a couple of meals. So yeah, perfect for meal prep. This time I decided to add some butter just for the extra vitamins and a little bit of extra flavor. Like butter is always really good with rice. So I just did that, but there's a lot of things you could add to this. For example, Stan Efferding, he always eats this with some chicken stock. And that's not it. Like sometimes I like to eat it with a scoop of hummus and some olive oil just for some extra calories if that's what I want at the time. But I also sometimes eat it with kimchi or just some other vegetables or a little bit of extra meat like, a few strips of bacon. So yeah, it tastes good on its own, but there's a lot of things you could eat with it. If you have any ideas, maybe drop one in the comment section. I'd really like to know if you have any ideas because I eat so much of this stuff. I need new ways to, mix it up and whatnot. This time I decided to add some beets to it, some fermented beets, just for some probiotics for my gut microbiome. But yeah, just put a little bit on the side. It also makes the dish look a lot nicer and more aesthetically pleasing. But other than some riffraff that was in the corn, this is a very paleo caveman sort of meal. What I mean by that is all the ingredients caveman would have had access to. Like there's nothing ultra processed in here. I hope you make this meal. Let me know how it goes if you do. But yeah, I also teach how to get strong like a caveman if you're interested in other caveman primal kind of things. So yeah, I'll link that video here. You know how to get strong with a rock. But thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next video.